Okay, welcome nerds. This is going to be a new web series where we talk about software engineering practices, theories, and tools, where we cover various things that software engineers use. Today we're going to be talking about the Singleton, which is a pretty simple design pattern. I figured we could start off with something pretty simple and move on to more complex things as we go along. This is just a basic UML diagram. We'll cover how to read and what UML is in another video, but for those who understand it, it's pretty simple. You just have an instance of itself and a get method that calls itself. Okay, moving on to uses and intents. It's best used when you only need one instance of a class and you need global access. If you don't need both of those, chances are Singleton's not what you're looking for. This design pattern is very good for things like a database connection, handling logging, configuration, also hardware things where you only need one access point, such as a print spooler. In general, this is a good design pattern for multi-threaded applications. Now let's move on to some code examples I've prepared. This code has been uploaded to GitHub, so if you want to download it or just look around, mess with it, whatever, you're free to do so. Now that we're in a code, let's look at the main method in the program file. This is where code generally just starts. I'm going to be giving most of my code examples in C#, but for most part, design patterns and like data structures and things, they're pretty similar from language to language. Before we get into this stuff, let's look at our different Singleton classes and examples, and we'll come back to this. So first off, we just have a simple logger class. So if you recall back to the UML diagram, we had three things that are important. We have a private static variable. It needs to be private so no one else can access it besides this class, and it needs to be static so it's the same across all instances. We need a private constructor, which we have right down here. That way, due to encapsulation, no other classes can make it their own instantiation of this class. Then we have a public getter. And for this public getter, we're doing lazy loading, which means until this is called, the class is not instantiated. So that's what this is about, and then we just return the instance. And then we have a method that does stuff, which, it's not super important. Just there to show you what's going on. Another example we have, this is using lazy loading again, but this is a thread safe example. Pretty much everything's the same except for we're adding this. So we still have a private static instance, a private constructor, and a public getter. That's also static. So what we're doing here with a lock instance, this is C#'s way of handling multi-threading. We'll get into multi-threading some other day. That's a big can of worms that is outside the scope of this video. And again, we just have some method. Final one, this is also a thread safe way of doing things because we're declaring the instance when the class is loaded. So as soon as the class is loaded, it's going to run this and it's static, which means it's run and it's done. We also have a private constructor and a public get. Because we've already instantiated it, we can just return an instance. There's other ways we could write this code, but for the most part, it doesn't matter, at least in terms of an example. So coming back to the main method, we're just doing things like where logger get instance, which we know returns a logger, and we're calling the method on that class. First line of a code, okay, simple enough. Calling it again, loaded from config, and then we're just calling the config loader get config method. Same thing for a database, and then there we go. So all in all, Singleton is a very simple design pattern. It's very effective and useful when you use it correctly. A lot of times people misuse it when they don't actually need one instance of a class or they don't need a global state or something like that. But in the cases where you do need something, it is very handy. So it's just another tool that software engineers use to make better programming. And I guess that's it for this week. Next time, join me again where we'll cover something different. If you have any ideas or suggestions or something you'd like me to see covered, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Have a good day.